Hello and welcome. Continuing this month's topic for Mental Health Month, today we're doing Qigong for OCD and anxiety. My name is Chris Shelton, coming to you live from mostly cloudy and rainy San Jose, California, the heart of Silicon Valley. And I thought what we'd do today is we'd talk about what is OCD and what is anxiety. So first of all, let's kind of look at what OCD is. OCD is obsessive-compulsive disorder. And how do you know if you have OCD? And there's different ways to tell, but the first part of OCD, which is the obsession, it's one thing to obsess about something, like think about something over and over and over and over again. But the compulsion is then when you go and do it. So if you go and act on that obsession, for example, before I started practicing Qigong, I used to have OCD, and one of my biggest things was I would check the doorknob 100 times or check the stove 100 times to make sure it was off. So I had the thought process in my head over and over again, did I turn off the stove? Did I turn off the stove? I'd run downstairs or run into the kitchen and check the doorknob, and then I'd stare and look at the stove, make sure the lights were off on the stove as well as that none of the burners were on, and then I'd actually go back upstairs, and then I'd repeat the pattern again because somewhere in my psyche I felt like maybe I didn't look at it good enough, or I didn't look at it the right way, or some kind of ghost came behind me, turned the knobs just to mess with me, so I come downstairs again and I would check it. So the obsession is, for one thing, is to obsess over something over and over and over again. Like in my case, for example, was concerned whether or not I turned off the stove or had locked the front door. And then the compulsion actually comes in when you actually take action. So that's when you have OCD. And some people have different degrees of OCD. Some people, it's something as simple as what I was talking about, which is, checking the stove or making sure that the front door is locked. But some people have it really bad to where they have to go through a series of events to feel safe or secure. And some people can't do things like step over cracks a certain way or step through a doorway a certain way. And it's really debilitating. It really takes up a big part of a person's life. So if you have really severe OCD, my heart goes out to you because it really does take up a big portion of your life. And that's why we're talking about Qigong practices and diet, things that we could do to help with OCD. Now, anxiety. When we look at anxiety, well, what is anxiety? Anxiety is when you have a thought process about something that's way blown out of proportion to what the actual event is. Some of the physical signs may be spontaneous sweating, nervousness, shakiness, moodiness, chattiness. You may have heart palpitations. Some people will get a stuck feeling in this, we call this the yellow court region, or the xiphoid process right here. They have this stuck feeling, pain in the chest. So there's all these different symptoms that come up. And normally what happens is a person will have anxiety that may pop up out of nowhere. Maybe it's anxiety to drive. I know some people that before they get into the car, they have to go through a whole series of mantras or meditations in order to even get into the car. Some people have to take medication as well in order to be able to control their anxiety. And when an anxiety attack comes on, some people, it may be a continual thing where they have this underlying anxiety, so they're fidgety and they're moving around all the time, they're restless. And some people, it will just come on. Maybe it's a situation. Sometimes it will come on and there's no evident trigger whatsoever, but for some reason there's something in their psyche, there's something in their environment that will allow these symptoms to come on. So what do we want to do? We want to look at what the dysfunction is according to Chinese medicine, and what can we do to remedy these types of dysfunctions. Because again, like I talked about a couple weeks ago, unfortunately, mental health in this country is not covered. They don't really, for some reason, there's not enough money put into, or resources put in to helping people with the different types of mental disorders that are out there, in depression, anxiety disorders, obsessive-compulsive disorders, depersonalization disorders. I mean, the list goes on and on. There's all types of different things out there, and unfortunately, our country, and I think most countries, don't really have the tools or the means in which to address mental health. And if you're suffering with some form of mental health, whether it's depression, OCD, anxiety, etc., then there's obviously, according to Chinese medicine, there's obviously some kind of organ dysfunction going on inside the body. So both anxiety and OCD, one of the main organs that's involved is your spleen and your stomach. Spleen, stomach, and pancreas. And why is that? Your stomach is and your spleen is in this, what they call is the middle burner, which is the assimilation chamber where the food is digested and assimilated. It's rotten, ripened from the stomach. It's then transformed and transported to the spleen. From there, then it's then sent up to the chest to be made into blood, mixing with the energy of the kidneys and the air that we pull in, as well as the drink that we take in. So if there's a dysfunction in the stomach itself, then what will happen is that it will cause other organs to be out of function, out of order, or dysfunctional as well too. So when you worry, because the negative emotion of the spleen and the stomach is actually worry, over intellectualizing, and thinking too much. So if you're somebody who thinks too much, then you're stuck in your head. And we can normally tell, according to Chinese face reading, when somebody's stuck in their head, because if the person has deep set eyes, for example, meaning that their eye sets way back and the brow bone protrudes over, or the forehead, this area here, it's not fair because I shaved my head this morning, but this area here, the bigger it is, it means that the more that the person's stuck in their head. If the person is a practical person, then measuring from here to here, if this area is the biggest area on the body, then this means that the person's practical. And then from here to here to measure if the person is a gut instinct person, meaning they rely upon their gut in order to assess a situation or just know something about a situation even before it shows itself. So when we look at OCD, obsessive-compulsive disorder, one of the things that we do is we want to go ahead and address what is going on with the dysfunction of the spleen and the stomach. And chances are, for both OCD and anxiety, the person will crave sugar, whether it's sugar, natural sugar, carbs, breads, pasta. They'll have this craving for sugar. Why? Because the spleen loves things that are sweet. But the problem is that it doesn't want sweet like sugar or ice cream or bread or pastas. What it really wants is it wants things like sweet potatoes, yams, butternut squash, acorn squash. It loves that kind of stuff. Bone marrow is also very good to benefit the spleen as well as the kidney network. Lean meat, if you're a meat eater, lean meat also helps to benefit the spleen and the stomach. Tofu could also benefit the spleen and the stomach. So there are foods, oatmeal, molasses. So there are foods that you could eat when you are craving something sweet in order to nurture the spleen, because once again, if you have the symptoms of craving things that are sweet, it means that that spleen is kind of knocking on your back door saying, listen to me, man, give me something to give me balance. And what's interesting, it's almost like what came first, the chicken or the egg? Did the discord come first, meaning that the thought process, the obsession come up, or the anxiety come up first, which then created the spleen deficiency? Or did the spleen deficiency from maybe poor diet, lack of exercise, actually start up, and then you started to crave the sweets, which then starts to show up as anxiety or OCD? So for anxiety, one of the things that we look at is that, yes, it's the stomach network. What's interesting is it's the stomach network, but also the liver plays a big role in it. And the discord between these organs actually is what is the trigger for the heart. So the heart is the emperor or empress of the body, and this is where our consciousness is stored. And if you think about it, whenever you have an emotional event come up in your life, whether it's anger or fear or worry, what happens? If you're worried about something, your heart races and then attacks your spleen and your stomach. If you're angry about something, it attacks the heart and then weakens your liver and your gallbladder. If you're fearful about something, your heart races and then it weakens your kidneys and your bladder. And if you're grieving about something, then a lot of times you feel the pain in the heart and then it weakens the lungs. So the heart is the emperor of the body or empress of the body. It dictates how much of an emotion is going to be expressed or suppressed. So whenever you have somebody that's having anxiety, number one, we do want to look at diet. So excessive amounts of greasy, fatty, fried foods, once again, sugar, processed foods, all these things will create this discord in the stomach, which then will affect the liver blood, which then affects the heart blood, which then affects the mind. So there's this whole physiological process that happens when we don't eat the right foods for our constitution. And I talked about this before about the different foods and the energy properties of foods a couple months ago. If you go back to our YouTube channel and look at the YouTube lives when we were talking about food and the energy properties of food, sometimes some people need to have a certain amount of meat in their diet in order to be able to be healthy and to have their mind clear and to build their blood. If you're somebody that decides to be vegan, that's great. But if you start becoming anemic, blood deficient, depressed, then maybe that diet isn't for you. So really pay attention to what your constitution needs before making a decision on a fad diet or doing it for some other purpose other than what your body needs in order to be healthy. Okay, so our environment also will create anxiety. And the truth of the matter is that if you're around other people that are anxious, guess what? Energetically, at some level, you're going to pick up that anxiety as well too. You'll pick up the patterns. You know, it's that whole thing, nature or nurture. Deepak Chopra talks about this in a lot of his books, that you don't necessarily have to have the dysfunction. So if you have a family history of anxiety, Deepak Chopra and other consciousness leaders of the world have talked about how if you change your environment, change your diet, change how you process these different emotions, you do not have to get the dysfunction or the discord. So everybody that's ever come into our clinic at Morning Crane, whether in San Jose or in Los Angeles, that's been on antidepressant or anti-anxiety medication, we've been able to get them off of it with change of diet, the session strategies, as well as giving them these Qigong practices. So what are the Qigong practices? Well, one of the things we need to do first is we need to nurture the stomach. So one of my favorite practices is called massaging the yang organs. And your yang organs are your stomach, your large and small intestine, and your bladder. Also something called the triple burner, but we won't get into that right now. So the practice is really simple to do. And anytime you have an upset stomach, this is a great practice to do. Or if you have constipation or diarrhea, some kind of digestive issue going on, then this practice of massaging the yang organs is something that can actually remedy the situation. So I'm going to inhale, bring the arms up, and then I'm going to exhale, and I'm going to imagine, if I want to make this into more of a mindfulness practice, I'm going to imagine golden light actually coming up into the abdomen as we inhale. And then as I exhale, massaging once again the stomach and the intestines and bladder, gallbladder. As I exhale, then I'm going to imagine any toxicity, any dysfunction, discord, leaving out through the bottom of the feet like a dark cloud, going several feet away from the body and deep into the ground. Okay, so a very simple practice to do. And if you notice, I'm kind of using my legs also as a pump. I'm helping to pump the blood up to the chest, up to my digestive system. I'm using my mindfulness in order to be able to pull the golden light up into my stomach, my gallbladder, my bladder, intestines. Okay, very simple practice to do. And you can close your eyes and do this. Some people I actually see walking around the park, like in San Francisco, we see some of the people in the Asian community, they'll be walking around the park and doing this. So you could actually walk and do this, but keep your eyes open if you're walking. Don't want you to injure yourself. All right, very simple practice to do. So the next time you have upset stomach, or you know that you do suffer from anxiety or a certain level of OCD, this is a simple practice to do. And what's funny though is when you do the practice, don't think about it too much. So one aspect of this whole thing is to calm the mind. All right, so don't over intellectualize the practice. Like, at what speed should I be doing this, Chris? What color of golden light is it? What hue is it? So there's you don't have to be that exact. You make it be whatever it is for you. So if you feel better slowing it down, then slow it down. If golden light doesn't mesh with your system, then imagine pink light. I don't know, whatever feels good to you. Okay, so very simple to do. Then we're going to finish by pulling down the heavens. Inhale 3 times, exhale, inhale and exhale. Last one, inhale and exhale. Now, another good practice to benefit the spleen is actually the practice of the spleen move itself. And there's two ways to do this. One way that we could do it is we could start off by pulling down the heavens one time, inhale and exhale. Now, the stomach and spleen relates to our earth element. So we want to imagine like the fingers become like long hollow straws, enter down deep into the earth, Mother Earth. And as we inhale, we're going to imagine golden light coming up. We're going to make it like a little diamond or a triangle with our hands. Relax the shoulders. Find a pivot point on the ceiling, or if you're outside doing this in the sky. And what we're going to do is we're going to shift. Inhale, center, shift. Tongue position also points down, all right, with your mouth closed, because the breath is in and out through the nose. And what you could do to make this into more of a mindfulness practice is you could go ahead and focus on something that creates anxiety for you, or that you know that you're worried about. Focus on that, feel it. Who's involved? What's involved? What is the situation? As you inhale, imagine this golden cloud fill up into the left side of the body. As you exhale, imagine that leaving like a dark cloud out through the feet and down deep into the ground. Now, if this is too hard for you, then the other practice you could do is actually like you're holding a beach ball. Once again, I'm using my legs as a pump to help to pump the blood and chi up into this middle section of our body where our stomach's located. I mean, how many of you or how many of us have had the situation, let's say, for example, of eating dinner or having breakfast and having a heated conversation with family members, your spouse, your child, and then all of a sudden you feel this knot in the middle section of your stomach. That's what happens when stomach and spleen chi is out of balance, is it actually will knot. Like kidney chi, when kidney chi is out of balance, it actually will descend. When liver chi, for example, gets out of balance, it will become chaotic, right? So the energy will manifest differently for whatever emotional trauma or situation that you're going through. Now, when we let go of the over-intellectualizing, the thinking too much, then what will happen is we'll bring about the positive virtue of peace of mind and centeredness, okay? So I'm coming back, exhale. So you can imagine this golden cloud filling up into the left side of the body, and then as you exhale, we imagine the circumstance leaving like a dark cloud out through the bottom of the feet and deep into the ground. Okay, so then I'm going to come back to the center, finish pulling down the heavens 3 times. Inhale and exhale. And inhale and exhale. Okay. So if you think you're somebody that would like to get involved in helping people with mental health, please click on the link below, because we do have a Qigong teacher training that's online. Level 1 is starting in June here in a couple of weeks. So if you're somebody that wants to help yourself or help other people in the mental health area or arena, which there's a lot of people out there actually really suffering, then please click on the link below. Now, one last practice for the spleen that we could go ahead and do is the spleen sound. And the healing sound for the spleen is who, like you when you have an upset stomach, who. Okay, so that's the sound. So what's going to happen is that once again we're going to focus on something that causes anxiety or causes worry in our life. And as we inhale, we're going to imagine the yellow cloud filling up into the right side of the body, or excuse me, into the left side of the body. You can even touch the that area of the body as you inhale, and then as you exhale. Imagine that negative circumstance. Imagine that feeling leaving. If you're somebody with OCD, imagine that leaving like a dark cloud, going several feet away from the body and deep into the ground. So as I inhale, imagine the obsession, imagine the compulsion leaving like a dark cloud, going several feet away from the body and into the ground, or the anxiety. So inhale. And once again, just allow for that to leave. Now, if you're in public and you're feeling this obsession come on, you're overthinking things, you actually do the sound underneath your breath. So I inhale. And as I exhale, imagine that feeling leaving like a dark cloud. Inhaling. All right, so simple to do. Such a simple practice with profound results. And the next thing we wanted to go ahead and do, if you have somebody who has anxiety, then we want to go ahead and do some movements and meditations for the heart, to benefit the heart. Once again, the heart is the emperor or empress of the body. So the heart move, you can start off either by holding a ball, and then we're going to press, and the heart meridian actually ends here at the pinky, where then it connects to the small intestine meridian. So you're going to press, inhale, imagine a pink cloud filling up into the heart. As you exhale, imagine that anxiety leaving like a dark cloud, going several feet away from the body and deep into the ground. Inhale, center, and exhale. And one of the other things that you could do if you're somebody who has anxiety or OCD, another simple food remedy besides the sweet potatoes and such, is maybe starting off in the morning with a hot glass of water with ginger, fresh ginger. Couple slices of ginger. A lot of times I talk about having hot water with a lemon, with a little bit of coconut oil, which kickstarts your digestive system by secreting bile into the stomach. But the ginger actually will help to stimulate you. If you're somebody who's trying to break away from caffeine, my acupuncture teacher says that drinking a glass of ginger water, a hot ginger water, can stimulate you almost the same way that caffeine does. Okay, so the positive virtue that comes forth when the anxiety leaves is the positive virtue of love. And it's not just the romantic type of love, it's the universal love that all beings should have innately for one another, because we are all interconnected with everything else around us. Inhaling and exhaling. If this way's too hard doing the ball, for some people it's a little bit challenging, then you do like you're cradling a baby, and then I'm going to press. Inhale in the center, cradle, and then press. Inhale in the center, cradle, and then press. Again, and then press. And there are some herb formulas too, like if you have anxiety. There's a traditional herb formula called Free and Easy Wonder. You could check it out online. Once again, talk to your primary care physician first to make sure that it's not contraindicated if you're on other medications. So check it out with your doctor first. Inhaling in the middle, imagine the pink cloud filling up into the chest, and then as you exhale, imagine that circumstance leaving like a dark cloud, going several feet away from the body and deep into the ground. Now, one of my favorite practices to do, though, for the heart to calm myself down, is the heart sound. Oh man, the heart healing sound is probably one of the most profound sounds that you could do, and you could do it audibly to make it, really feel the vibration in the chest. So if you're alone and you're feeling anxiety, then what I would do is I would go ahead and do it out loud. Now, the other thing I would do too is, like I said a few minutes ago, the heart meridian actually ends. The heart meridian emerges from the armpit here and flows all the way down and actually ends here at the pinkies, the inner corner of the pinkies. So what you can do is you can actually take your thumbs and gently press or firmly press the inner corners of the pinkies. And as you press on heart 9, then I'm going to imagine a pink cloud filling up into the chest as I inhale. And then as I exhale, I'm going to make the ha sound. So inhaling and exhale. Imagine that circumstance leaving like a dark cloud, or imagine that feeling leaving like a dark cloud. Inhaling. Imagine that leaving like a dark cloud, going several feet away from the body. So whatever anxiety you may be feeling, imagine a pink or a red cloud filling up into the chest, into the pericardium, which is the sac that actually protects the heart and protects us from, number one, helps keep the heart at the proper temperature. Number two, protects us from the external pernicious influences, which is also not only environment and weather, but also pernicious influences from people around us. So inhaling. And it's really cool to do this practice and to press those points. If you're driving though and you're feeling anxiety, obviously it's going to be kind of hard. You can maybe do it with one hand, but once again, keep your eyes open, watch the road. Don't text and drive. Don't do your heart sound. press on your heart meridian and drive. But you could actually do the sound audibly or inaudibly underneath your breath. So if you're somebody who gets anxiety while driving for whatever the reason, then you would go ahead and pull the breath in. Feel the fear, feel the anxiousness, and then as you exhale, now the cool thing about this is that if you're in public, then what you go ahead and do is you go ahead and do the sound actually underneath your breath. And if you do it underneath your breath, once again, imagine the pink cloud filling up into the chest as I inhale. And it's like you're laughing, like what happens when you laugh, the sound you make, ha 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 ha. That's the sound that we're making here. So inhaling. And you'll do that over and over and over again. I know if I'm going into a stressful situation, when I was competing, it's always the unknown when you're going into a match, what's going to happen. And some of that anxiety is good because it fuels you up, but then sometimes it could actually make you overextend yourself too soon because you're so anxious. So actually going into a nervous situation or an anxious situation for myself, I will do the sound, whether if I'm alone, I will do the sound out loud. If I'm in and around or around other people, I will make this sound underneath my breath. So there you go, wrapping up for another week of Qigong for mental health. Today, what we talked about was practices that help people who are suffering with OCD, obsessive-compulsive disorder, as well as anxiety disorders or dysfunctions. And one last thing about the heart, because anxiety too can sometimes be confused, like, well, Chris, I don't have some of those symptoms that you talked about early on. But if you're having heart palpitations, if you're having atrial fibrillation, AFib, then those situations are also emotional too. So listen to your body. If you are having heart palpitations, angina, atrial fibrillation, AFib, then look at what's going on in your life and don't ignore those things that are going on in your life, because our body is like a cup. Eventually that cup will get full and it has to show up somewhere inside the body. So if you want to be able to help yourself, if you're somebody who does obsess over things, or you're somebody that is anxious a lot of the times, I call it like letting the air out of the tire, right? You slowly let the air out of the tire instead of trying to hold the air in. So you slowly want to let the air out of the tire, meaning that every time something comes up for you, you utilize these practices so that way it does get bottled up and it doesn't turn into things like AFib, or it doesn't turn into things like anxiety or OCD. And I can tell you for myself, when I first started practicing Qigong almost 30 years ago, I used to have this OCD. Like I said, it wasn't as bad as some people, but I would maybe check the stove 15 times. So it definitely was a disruption to my life, that's for sure. And I can tell you one thing, that besides my other health issues that resolved after practicing the Qigong every single night, every single day for 1 to 2 hours, then after about a year of doing these practices, I just suddenly realized, like, man, when did I stop checking the stove all the time? When did I stop checking the front door all the time to make sure that it was locked? So I was able to resolve my OCD issues simply from doing these Qigong practices, and also a little minor change in diet as well too. So once again, if you're somebody that really wants to help other people, please sign up for our Qigong teacher training program. It's a profound program. I feel it's the best Qigong teacher training program that you could find out there, most comprehensive, because what we're doing is that we're not just showing people how to do the practices just because it feels good. We're introducing you to the philosophies of Chinese medicine and how this organs network and this organ system actually becomes out of balance when we don't process our emotions, doesn't process our emotions appropriately. Okay, so click on the link below. Please reach out. Leave us your comments. I'd love to hear the comments on the YouTube page, on Facebook, on IGTV, on Instagram. Please reach out. And until next time, may your mind be well, may your health be well, and I will cheat you later.